There are some places on Earth that feel too empty for anything important to be there. Endless desert, frozen seafloor, high mountain caves, remote cliffs, places where you expect silence, not secrets. But every once in a while, something turns up so strange, so out of place, that it instantly makes the whole location feel wrong. Ancient carvings deep inside caves, bizarre objects stuck to the ocean floor, and discoveries so isolated they almost sound made up. These are mysterious things found in the middle of nowhere that made no sense. In a lonely part of Kazakhstan, far from any major city, satellite images revealed something that looked almost unbelievable at first glance. A giant pentagram carved into the ground. It measures roughly 1,200 feet across, and from above it looks exactly like the kind of symbol people would expect to find in some forbidden or secret location. That is exactly what made it so creepy. This was not found in the middle of a city or beside some tourist attraction. It was sitting out in a remote landscape where almost nobody would ever randomly come across it. Even after explanations pointed to it likely being an outline of a Soviet-era park or star-shaped design, the image still feels deeply unsettling, because when you first see a giant pentagram in the middle of nowhere, your brain does not go to landscaping, it goes to cult, probably. In 2012, villagers near a remote Siberian settlement made a discovery that looked like it had come straight out of a science fiction movie. Deep in the forest, they found a huge metal object, weighing around 440 pounds, shaped like a cylinder with a strange ridged dome on one end. It was so unusual that locals believed it had fallen from space, and media quickly started calling it a UFO fragment. The object was dragged through the snow back to the village and handed over to authorities for inspection, but that only made the mystery stranger. Russia's space agency said it was not related to space technology. NASA's orbital debris chief said it did not appear to be from a spacecraft either, and tests showed it was not radioactive. Part of it was reportedly made of titanium, but no one could immediately explain exactly what it was or how it ended up in the middle of a Siberian forest. In Sudan's Bayuda desert, archaeologists uncovered a roughly 4,000-year-old burial that stood out because of one deeply strange detail. Inside the grave, they found a ceramic vessel containing charred plant material, wood, animal bones, insect remains, and fossilized droppings, and researchers said they did not know of a similar case. That is exactly the kind of discovery that makes a site feel mysterious rather than simply old. It was not just a body buried in the desert, it was evidence of a ritual nobody fully understands in a place that today feels harsh, empty, and cut off from the rest of the world. The idea that a remote grave could preserve the trace of a ceremony we still cannot interpret adds a whole extra layer of unease. It makes the desert feel less empty and more like it's hiding customs that disappeared without explanation. High in the mountains of Mexico, in a cave called Chiquihuite, researchers found stone objects that could push human presence in the Americas much further back than many people once thought. What makes this discovery so weird is the cave itself. It's a barren, cold, remote cave, and it does not look like the kind of place ancient people would casually choose to live in for comfort. That is why the discovery hits so hard. You picture a place that feels difficult to reach even now, and then you realize people may have been deep inside it tens of thousands of years ago. It changes the mood of the whole location. Instead of feeling empty, it suddenly feels watched by the distant past. And when an isolated cave starts rewriting parts of human history, it stops being just a cave. It becomes the kind of place that makes the world feel older and stranger than it should. Deep in the Peruvian Andes lies a remote Inca site so difficult to reach that many people compare it to Machu Picchu's hidden cousin. One of the strangest things found there is not a temple or a tomb, it is a set of white stone llama figures built directly into the terrace walls. That image alone is unforgettable. In a lonely mountain complex surrounded by steep terrain, you suddenly find llamas marching across the hillsides in stone. Researchers have said there is nothing else quite like it in the Andes, which only adds to the mystery. It feels artistic, symbolic, and oddly playful, but also eerie because of where it is. These were not decorations in some busy city square, they were placed in a remote ceremonial landscape high in the mountains. On the remote Indonesian island of Flores, inside Liang Bua Cave, scientists uncovered the remains of a tiny human species now known as Homo floresiensis. The discovery became famous because the individual was so small that people immediately started calling it a real-life hobbit. But what makes this find perfect for a mystery list is not just the size, it's the setting. This was not some famous urban excavation site where unusual finds happen all the time. It was a cave on an isolated island, and inside it was evidence of a human relative that most people never imagined existed. In Afghanistan's Bamiyan village, towering Buddha statues were once carved directly into massive cliffs, standing watch over a remote landscape that now feels far removed from the Buddhist world they came from. The two giant figures, destroyed in 2001, were around 55 and 38 meters tall, and the surrounding cliffs also contain caves and remains of monastic spaces. That is what makes this place so striking. You are looking at a rugged valley in central Afghanistan, and then you realize it once held colossal sacred figures visible to travelers moving through the region. One of the strangest archaeological discoveries in recent years came from an ancient port on Egypt's Red Sea coast. In that remote desert setting, archaeologists found a Buddha statue and what scholars described as the first Buddhist inscription found in Egypt, including the first Sanskrit inscription there. That is the kind of discovery that instantly scrambles your mental map of the ancient world. A Buddha in Egypt sounds wrong until you remember how trade once connected distant civilizations. But even knowing that, it still feels shocking. This was not a bustling modern crossroads, it was a remote desert port, and buried there was evidence that ideas, religion, and art had traveled much further than most people imagine. Near the Tigris tunnel in southeastern Turkey, ancient Assyrian rulers had reliefs and inscriptions carved directly into the rock of a cave system associated with one of the sources of the Tigris. That is already dramatic, but the setting is what makes it unforgettable. These were not carvings made in a palace where crowds would admire them every day. They were placed in a wild, natural site deep in a cave landscape tied to the origin of one of the great rivers of history. Deep off the coast of Alaska, scientists using a remotely operated vehicle found one of the weirdest objects imaginable stuck on a rock on the ocean floor. A small golden orb with a hole in it. It was a discovery about 3,300 meters down in complete darkness during an end expedition. And the best part is that even the scientists on the mission were unsure of what they were looking at in the moment. That uncertainty is what makes this such a perfect number one. It was not ancient ruins or some half-understood monument from a distant past. It was a real object found in one of the most inaccessible places on Earth, and the immediate reaction was basically confusion. That is pure mystery. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, and I will see you again soon. Goodbye.